All right, so let's start seated. So comfortable cross-legged position. If you know that you tend to be a little tighter, go ahead and sit up on a blanket. Otherwise, if it's pretty comfortable for you to cross one shin in front of the other, come there. Let's all start with our right shin crossing in front. So good indication that you need some height underneath your sit bones is if your knees are lifting up a lot here. So you want as much height so that knees are fairly perpendicular to your hips. And then let's just roll the shoulders back a few times. Oh, kind of get all of the crackles out. And then roll forward. Good, roll back again. And then just allow your shoulder blades to release down your back. Bring your hands to your thighs. Let the eyelids close. Take a nice deep inhale through your nose. Open your mouth, sigh the breath out, let it go. Ha. Couple more like that. Deep inhale, fill up. Let the day go, the to-do list go, all of the stuff that might be stressing you out so far, just put it aside for the next hour. It will be there when we're done. Maybe you'll feel a little better tackling it again. So your main objective this next hour is to just quiet down, check in, start to pay attention to your body, to your breath. So begin to dip into your Ujjayi breath here, inhaling through your nose, creating that soft brush of air in the back of your throat, and then exhaling through your nose, creating that same sound. Notice if your shoulders start to creep up around your ears, keep releasing them down. Notice if you're gripping the inner thigh at all. It happens sometimes in this position. See if you can soften and release there. Good. Go ahead and blink your eyes open as you inhale, stretch the arms up overhead. It's a little wider than shoulders distance apart to start. Kind of spin the pinky side of the hand forward. So you're finding that widening across the backs of your shoulders. And then interlace your fingers. Just notice what index finger is on top. Press your palms up towards the ceiling. Still find that feeling of inner arm wrapping towards outer arm, widening across the backs of the shoulders. Good. Inhale for lots of length here. Hold on to that. Root into your sit bones as you exhale. Twist from that lowermost left rib to the right. And then go ahead and release down. So left hand comes to the outside of that right thigh. Just find that leverage to gently press your shoulder heads back. Your right fingertips are reaching behind you. You might even want to have them on a block if you're sitting up on a blanket. Inhaling, lengthening. Exhaling, emptying out, twisting in a little deeper. Maybe you begin to bring your gaze out over your right shoulder or move in that direction. Starting out, it might not get there. That's okay. Good, and then just start to bring your gaze towards your left shoulder. You can stay in this twist, tuck your chin a little bit. That's gonna get into the back right neck area. First thing, it can feel quite intense. And then stay here like this. Find a little side bend. So inhale that arm, right arm up and over. Keep pressing into that left palm. Notice if that right sit bone is popping up a little bit. Try to ground down there. Maybe that means you come out of this a bit. Palm of the right hand is spinning to face behind you or moving in that direction. Shoulder blades are both releasing down. Maybe you're gazing up underneath that top arm. Good, deep inhale. As you exhale, root down into your right palm. Take that left arm up and over. It's kind of a more classic side bend shape here. This time you're anchoring into that left sit bone. Try to release that right shoulder blade down. It wants to go up by the ear. And then depending upon your body, your flexibility, you might move towards coming to your forearm. Breath smooth and steady. That inhale through your nose, that exhale through your nose. Good, let's inhale up. Extend your legs to straight, give them a shake. And then recross with your left shin in front. This side might feel different, so use more or less prop as needed. Things don't have to look exactly the same side to side. And then close your eyes here. Dip into that sound of your breath again. And sometimes it can be really hard to invite in quiet. We're kind of conditioned to be busy all the time, to be getting things done, to be doing. See if you can go there. Even if that just simply means recognizing that, this is kind of challenging for me. Just doing the best you can, knowing that the more you practice this mindfulness, the easier it gets. And just also knowing that it's a really valuable skill to have. It's a great tool to have in our toolbox. Something that we use not only on our yoga mat, but out in the world. Good, again, blink your eyes open, inhale, stretch the arms up. So just take them a little wider than shoulders distance apart. Start to spin the palms to face behind you a little bit. Keep anchoring down into your sit bones. Let that rooted feeling just inform the length that you're getting through the sides of your waist. And then we interlace fingers. So go the way that feels funny. The opposite thumb and index are going to come on top. Ooh, and then press your palms up towards the ceiling. It's going to be a little stretch in the fingers. You're certainly going to feel this in the shoulder area, back of the neck. Keep the arms, the upper arms especially, nice and activated. Good, deep inhale, hold on to all of this length. Press into your sit bones as you exhale, twist from the lowermost right rib to the left. Take another inhale, and then exhale, release hands. Find a little leverage, pressing that right palm into that left thigh. Both shoulder heads are pressing back. There's a little cobra feeling here in the upper body. And then slowly, just taking a couple breaths, you start to bring your gaze out towards that left shoulder. You might not get all the way there. Move in that direction, start to feel that stretch. And then stay in this twist, but exhale. Start to move your gaze towards that right shoulder. Tuck the chin a little bit. That feels yummy. So feeling the stretch in the back of the neck on that left side. Yummy is relative. It might be pretty intense. So if that's you, if that's the place that where you're at, back out a little bit, smile a little bit if possible. Make sure you're not clenching your teeth. Soften the muscles in the face and jaw. Okay, so we stay here like this. We find this little lateral stretch, like a reverse warrior in the upper body. Notice if that left sit bone is getting light. Press down there, and then notice if either shoulder is creeping up around your ears. Soften and release down. Maybe gazing up underneath that top arm if it feels okay to do so. Deep inhale, reach. And then exhale, more of a classic side stretch on this left side. So really firm the mat away with that left hand, but then root down into that right sit bone. Extend through that right pinky as you wrap those left ribs up towards the ceiling. All of these subtle little opposite actions happening in all of our poses. I think this is one of the reasons that yoga is kind of endlessly fascinating, even though we do the same thing over and over again. There's always new things to discover. They're subtle. But if we're paying attention, we start to find that. Good. When we're deep, inhale. Exhale, come on up. Good work. And then just flip onto your tabletop. Set up for your cat-cow. So landing with shoulders over wrists, knees underneath your hips. Feel the belly engage and pull in a little bit. And then firm down into the shins and inhale. Find a little arch in your lower back. As you exhale, press the mat away, round into the thoracic. Continuing like this. So your eyes might be closed again. You're just finding a nice, gentle movement. You're not too fast. You're not too slow. So such a beautiful way of warming up the spine. This is a good thing to do daily. Simple movements, but it does a lot. Few more rounds. Good, come back to neutral spine. So neither arching or rounding, back is nice and flat. Your gaze is an inch or two in front of your fingertips. As you inhale, you're gonna lift right leg, left arm. We're gonna hold here. So keep that lifted leg really active. Feel the inner right thigh spiral up towards the ceiling. Plug that left arm into the arm socket. Feel the shoulder blades releasing down. Notice if you start to dump in your lumbar. So if you're kind of overarching there, firm the belly button towards the spine. Definitely a little core work. You're feeling the outer hips engage. Exhale, release. Here we go. Inhale, left leg, right arm. So this nice little asymmetric extending pose. Kind of a little bit of a balance pose. This pose creates a lot of stability, especially in the back. See how long you can get. Imagine that you have a person pulling on your wrist and another person pulling back on your ankle. Good. Exhale, release. All right, walk your hands forward a couple of inches here. Curl your toes under. And then keep a bend in your knees as you shift your hips up towards the ceiling. So sit bones stretch, and then just pedal back and forth between your feet. And just kind of feeling out how, what's going on in your body today in this downward dog. Just noticing. And you're going to eventually come to a place of stillness. Set up with your feet hips distance apart, second and third toe pointing forward. You start to engage the muscles in your legs. So you do that by firming the muscles above the knees. Keep stretching those sit bones up. And then maybe peek forward between your hands. Make sure that they're shoulders distance apart. You can always turn your arms out a little bit if you're a little tighter in the shoulders. So slight, you don't want to overdo it, but that'll just create a little more space. Otherwise, the crease of the wrist is parallel with the top of the mat. And then go ahead and bring your gaze back between your feet so your ears line up with your biceps. Few more breaths here. So kind of a longer hold in our downward dog than we sometimes do. And you might be feeling this. You might be shaking a little bit. You might be fatiguing a little bit. Yoga teachers often refer to this pose as being a resting pose. Yeah, maybe if you've been practicing for a while. For most of us, it's pretty intense. So from here, we're going to start to slowly walk our hands back to meet our feet. And then just forward fold here. So let the back of the neck really lengthen down. If you're tighter in the hamstrings, you're probably going to want to find a little bend in your knees, especially initially. So that just makes the pose a little more accessible. Make sure you're not gripping your toes, but then you also want to make sure that you're not sitting back in your heels. So you feel the weight fairly evenly distributed. We're going to come into our Ardha Uttanasana. So as you inhale, hands come to shins or thighs, chest extends forward, gaze comes forward. Couple of breaths here like this, kind of slowing everything down today. Can you feel your inner thighs wrap towards your outer thighs as you stretch the sit bones back? Make sure that those shoulder blades are still squeezing in towards each other. So even here, the shoulders sometimes like to dip towards the ears, release them down. As we exhale, we fold back into our Uttanasana. Again, maybe a nice deep bend in your knees. Maybe you're ready to start straightening them a little bit. Again, just pulling all of the muscles up. Feeling muscle firm to bone. Good, and then nice and easy, start to roll on up to standing. Good, when you get there, roll the shoulders back a few times. And then just a few rounds of our Ardha Surya Namaskar, half sun salute, just to find a little flow, a little rhythm here. So as you inhale, take up space. Reach up into your extended mountain pose. As you exhale gracefully, fold in inner thighs, spiraling back, neck releasing down. Inhale back into that Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold. Pressing down into your feet, stretching arms out and up. Good, as you exhale, hands come together at your heart. Inhaling, reaching. Exhaling, folding in. Inhale, chest lengthens forward, gaze comes forward. Exhale, fold. Pressing down to rise up. As you exhale, hands come together at your heart. Two more, just moving with your breath. You can follow along with me if you know these well. Close your eyes. Just enjoy how this movement feels as you begin to connect each pose with the breath. There's absolutely no rush. And when you're done with your second round, you're just pausing, palms together at your heart. You could just be gazing at your fingertips. Already noticing what's beginning to shift inside your body, how you're beginning to feel. Okay, so from here, you're gonna step to the center of your mat. If you have a block, grab it. We're gonna come into our triangle pose, so it can be really nice to have. So a lot of times we kind of save triangle pose for a little more flow, but we're going to come into it early today and just kind of notice how it feels. So you're going to step wide on the mat. Your block is going to go behind your ankle. So edges of the feet are parallel with the edges of the mat. From deep within this right hip socket, turn that leg out to 90 degrees. And then left toes turn in. So we're getting this hip opening in the right thigh, left hip is releasing down. Square your torso to the long edge of your mat. So all these little opposite actions happening in the body. As you inhale, arms reach. And then as we exhale, we start to drag this right hip back. We're lengthening through that right side, stretching, stretching, stretching. When you can't get any further, if you don't have a block, if you're watching this on YouTube, hand on thigh or shin. If you do have a block, hand comes on the block. And this is nice. You have 3 different heights that you can use. Higher is nicer. It allows you to get this lengthening through the right side. Good. So do press more into the inner edge of your right foot. Notice how that turns this hip opening on. So you start to feel this inner right thigh wrap towards your outer right thigh. But then don't forget about that back leg. So you're pressing into the back edge of the foot there. Feel your shoulder blades squeeze in towards each other. So make sure that the shoulders aren't coming into the ears, which feels awkward given the position that we're in. But see if you can find a little of that. And then the other thing here is that sometimes we kind of let the head hang or we hold on too much. So you just want the head to be an extension of the spine. Can you find that? And then in the context of that, you might be looking down. You might be looking forward. Maybe you're looking up. This all depends on what's going on in your neck today. So kind of pay attention to those things. We've got a few more breaths here. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to feel very expansive. This is why I love this pose so much. We're getting kind of big and we don't get to do that very often. So enjoy that. Send your breath out into all places, especially the places that are feeling a little tighter. There's always some spot or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 spots in triangle pose that is like, oh man, I'm tight there today. And it shifts. And be okay with that. It's part of the fun. All right, so we're gonna blink our eyes open. Just turn your gaze down to your right toes. Press firmly into your feet. You can grab your block if you have one. Come on up. And then we parallel our feet, so edges of the feet. Even with the edges of the mat, you can just move that block off to the left side. And then here we go. We take that nice long hold in our Trikonasana to the second side. So from deep within that hip socket, turn that leg out to 90 degrees. So hip opening happening in left thigh. Turn your right toes in a lot. So this right hip is releasing down. So our hips are, we're not trying to square them at all. They're doing different things. That's okay. With the configuration of this in your legs, do square your torso to the long edge of your mat. All right. All these little things. Inhale, arms reach, shoulder blades release down. Press to the inner edge of that left foot, mount of the big toe, inner heel. And then exhale, lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. And again, you're welcome to bring your hand to your thigh or shin. Try not to put tons of pressure there if you are doing that. Best still is a block. And this side could feel a little bit different in your body. So maybe you need to give yourself a little more space. I do on this side. All right, so feeling that inner left thigh wrap towards the outer left thigh, extending through the left side of your waist. Shoulder blades stacking on top of each other. And then we don't want to forget about that back leg, that right leg. So sealing into the back edge there. Breath smooth and steady. Neck nice and long, regardless of where you're gazing at, whether that's down, forward, or up. And then maybe see if you can find a little more spiraling action, especially in that left leg, inner left thigh, wrapping towards outer left thigh. And then finally, close your eyes here, get really big, breathe into the spots where you're feeling some sensation. Just visualize the breath, creating some space, some ease. Few more here. Always just kind of fine tuning. So there's, even though we're holding this pose, it's static. There's all of these little adjustments that you're muscularly making. And keep reminding yourself, you notice if you're kind of getting lazy in one part of your body. When you, conversely, you're also noticing if you're like working too hard in one spot. And then you're fine tuning the pose. Good, blink your eyes open. Look down at your left toes. As you inhale, come on up, parallel your feet, and let's take a little forward fold. So that was a lot of work in the shoulders, holding the arms like that. So let's just get into the shoulders a little bit here. So you might want to walk your feet in a little bit closer, but feel the outer edges of the feet squeeze in. We're going to interlace our fingers at the small of our backs. If you're tighter in the shoulders, you're going to use a strap. All right, so we're going to inhale, lift our heart. And then as we exhale, hinge forward, fold in. So if you're interlacing your fingers, you can start to press your palms together if that's available to you, and then start to extend your wrists forward any amount. If you're holding onto the strap, you can come in as tight as feels good in your shoulders, and then you're kind of pulling outwards here. Put your brain in your feet. Just observe. If you're gripping the toes, just observe if all of the weight is in the heels. Again, we're trying to find that middle place. And then make sure you're not gripping your neck. If you're tighter in hamstrings, little bend in the knees is always nice in any of these forward folds. Take some of the work out. Good. As you inhale, lead with your heart. Press into your feet with a nice flat back. Come on up. And then you're going to step your feet together. You can just move your props out of the way. Let's come to the top of our mat. All right. So arms releasing by your side, coming into your nice mountain pose. Inhaling, arms reach. As you exhale, hinge forward, fold in. Inhale, chest extends forward, gaze comes forward. So bend your knees a lot, plant your palms, keep your gaze forward, step your right foot way back, then your left foot. Take an inhale here. Actually, we're going to take a few inhales in our plank pose. So fire up the legs. Make sure that you're gazing forward. The temptation is to look at your toes. Reach back through your heels, but stretch forward through your sternum. And then nice and slow, option to come to your knees. We exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Landing on our bellies. So pressing to the tops of your feet. Landing with your fingertips underneath your shoulder heads, elbows squeezing in, shoulder heads lift. We're just going to flow a little bit here, warming up the lower back. So inhale, chest extends forward and up. Exhale, lower down. Inhale up. Good. Exhale, lower. Inhale, extension and length. Exhale, lower down. Inhaling up, holding here. Just a few breaths. So feel the inner thighs spiral up. Feel the outer hips engage and squeeze in. That's going to help to protect the lower back. Notice, just observe how the expansion of the rib cage feels as you inhale. Good. From here, let's press to our tabletop. Curl our toes under. Find our downward facing dog. Few breaths here. Make any tiny little adjustments that you need to. And then just come into a place of stillness. From here, we inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, step that foot through. We're gonna land on our left knee, and we're gonna come into a little lizard pose here today. So kind of a nice, like minute-long hold. So you're gonna bring both hands to the inside of that right foot. You can walk that right foot off to the side a little bit. And then we're gonna start to slide the left knee back. You might wanna pat it up a little bit. And then melt this left hip down. So big hip flexor stretch. Also kind of a nice little groin stretch here in the right leg. So super intense. Definitely not a fun pose for most of us, but certainly it gets into some nice areas. So just stick with your breath. Back out of the posture a little bit if you need to. You can always make adjustments. So the point isn't to suffer and just kind of push so far that you might injure yourself. It's, to be smart about how you're approaching this. Little sensation is okay. For those of us that this feels a little bit easier, you could come down to your forearms. Take a few breaths here. Try to keep your gaze forward. Keep that extension of the sternum forward. Good. So if you're down on your forearms, press into your palms here. And then just heel toe that right foot back to center. We're gonna inhale, come into our half split. So this is a great pose. If you're a little bit tighter in the hamstring, to grab some blocks to place your hands on. If you're really tight, you're probably pretty upright. You could just use your hand on a wall to balance. If you're a little more open, you can walk your hands forward any amount. That same idea that we just had in our lizard pose is the sense of cobra pose in the upper body. So you're not rounding in to come down further. There's a little back bend even in this forward fold. And your right hip is drawing back as your left hip draws forward, so they're facing the same direction. All right, so from here, I'm gonna turn myself around. Go ahead, plant your palms. So rock forward first and foremost. So coming out of that half splits, plant your palms on either side of your right foot. Firm your left thigh up. All right, from here, we're gonna heel toe our right foot off to the left twice. Spin into the back edge of your left foot. So our right heel is intersecting our left arch. We're gonna keep a deep bend in this right knee. We're gonna inhale, windmill up and over, Veerabhadrasana 2. All right, so similar configuration to our triangle pose in that this left hip is releasing down, but we're getting the hip opener in this right foot, even though this knee is bent. Torso is facing to the long edge of the mat. And then just bring your gaze out of your right fingertips. Feel the outer glutes squeeze in. Feel your tailbone release down as your sternum stretches up. Make sure you're not gripping your toes, but do feel as though you're kind of squeezing feet in towards each other. So that really helps to engage and activate the legs. Such a strong, beautiful pose. Not necessarily easy, but it certainly builds a lot of strength. It gives us that coveted yoga booty. Who doesn't want that? And sometimes, counterintuitive though it may seem, being in these postures, holding them for a little bit and kind of riding out the sensations and the voices in the head that say, get me out, that feels very empowering. Our bodies are strong and amazing. It's pretty incredible what they can do. All right, exhale, sink a little deeper. I know it's hard. We're gonna flip our Reverse our warrior here. So very lightly reach those left fingertips down that back thigh. Just a few breaths here in this pose. Maybe you're gazing up underneath that top arm. Again, shoulder blades are releasing down. Make sure that the shoulders aren't up around the ears. All right, here we go. We inhale, Veerabhadrasana 2. Nice work. As you exhale, windmill arms up and around. Spin onto your left toes. Keep your hips this low. Step back, plank pose. Couple of breaths. Muscles engaging. Gaze forward. Legs super, super active. And then shift forward on toes. Maybe come to knees. Lower, pause at halfway. Elbows are squeezing in, shoulder heads are lifting. Land on your belly. Inhale, low cobra. Exhale, press to your tabletop, curl your toes under, downward facing dog. Take a few breaths there before we take that sequence to the second side. And then just check in with this downward dog. So we're like, maybe a third of the class left. So we're pretty warm, things are shifting. How are you feeling different in this pose? Does it feel a little easier, a little more spacious? Also fine if it doesn't. Just observe. From here, we inhale, lift our left leg. All right, as you exhale, step that foot through. Land on your right knee. All right, and then we're gonna walk this left foot off to the left. Both hands come to the inside. So finding our little lizard pose. If you're tender on that right knee, you could always pat it up a little bit. So double up your mat, maybe slide a blanket underneath there. The more flexible you are, the more you can slide that leg back, start to melt this right hip flexor down. Keep breathing. You'd always have your hands on blocks here as well. So, blocks always a good prop to have around. They essentially bring the floor a little bit closer. If you feel like you have a little more room to go in this pose, maybe you come down to your forearms. Again, keep extending sternum forward. Lengthen back through your tailbone so you're not rounding in here. And obviously, if it's excruciating to come down to this pose, you don't go there. You don't need to. And just a few more breaths here. Send the exhale to the spots that are tight. There's plenty in my body today. And if you're just thinking that this is absolute hell today, that's okay too. And you just focus on that piece where you're grateful that you can actually do this. Not everyone can. It's a gift to move our bodies. And I'm kind of the mind, use it or lose it. And keep using it so you can use it 30 years from now, 40, 50 years. Okay, so we start to upright ourselves here. Walk that foot back in. All right, and then we move back to our half splits. So left hip draws back, right hip forward. Again, hands can be on blocks. If you're really tight, you're gonna be pretty upright, holding onto a piece of wall. It all counts. We can get really attached to the idea that poses need to look a certain way. They're gonna look a certain way for some people. Most of us are just doing the best we can. That's the important thing. If you're a little more flexible, you're forward folding any amount, but you're really holding onto that action of left hip drawing back, right hip forward. And then this openness, this stretch across the heart center. All right, nice deep inhale. And then as you exhale, rock forward. So we're going to make that transition into our Veerabhadrasana 2. All right, so curl your right toes under, firm that thigh up. Heel toe this left foot to the right twice. So we're physically moving here to give ourselves space. Swing into the back edge of that right foot. Left heel is intersecting right arch. Right hip is releasing down, left hip is opening up. So keep a deep bend in this knee as you inhale. Veerabhadrasana 2. So legs kind of doing one thing, torso squaring, and then bringing your gaze out over your fingertips. And I'm going to shut my mouth here. Hallelujah. And we're going to just be here for several breaths. Gaze soft and gentle out over your fingertips. Nice deep inhale. Exhale, can you sink in? Maybe it's just a thought more. As you inhale, flip that left palm up, reach the right arm down at your back leg. Pinky side of that left hand spins back. Shoulder blades squeeze in towards each other, so you're getting your shoulders out of your ears. Great work. Strong legs, inhale, Veerabhadrasana 2. Exhale, arms come up and over, spin onto those right toes, plant your palms, keep your gaze forward as you step left foot to meet right foot. Take a couple of inhales here in plank pose. Fire up every muscle in your body. Shift forward on toes, maybe come to knees. To the count of 5, we land on our belly. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Tops of the feet press. Inhale, chest extends forward. Bhujangasana. If you would like to press your arms to straighter, you're welcome to do that. That puts a lot of undue pressure in your lower back. Come back down. So a little bigger Bhujangasana, King Cobra pose. And then from here, kind of press on up, cross your ankles behind you. So find a seat, and then we're going to come onto our backs for some bridge pose. So a little more back bending, which will feel really nice. So just landing with your arms by your side, knees are over your ankles. All right, so just take a couple breaths here. And as you're here, I want you to notice how there is this natural curve in your lumbar spine. We're going to inhale, kind of accentuate that. As you exhale, lose that curve. So you start to straighten the lower back. You're directing your tailbone forward. You feel the legs start to engage a little bit. Next inhale, keep that feeling, but start to press into your feet, lift up. And we hold here for a few breaths. So for this first one, let's grab the outer edges of our mat. You can walk your hands closer to your heels and then snuggle your shoulders underneath you. The feet love to turn out here. So if you suspect that might be happening in your body, it happens for most of us, turn them in. Might even feel like you're pigeon toeing. You don't want to overdo it. So we don't want to go so far the other direction. And just know that this pose also, kind of like Trikonasana, actually any of our poses, there's a lot of sensation happening here. You might be feeling it in your knees, certainly in your hip flexors, the front of the thigh, glutes perhaps, even hamstring. And of course, as you do this more and more, you start finding greater sense of ease as muscles begin to strengthen and lengthen. Okay, let's take one more deep inhale. Exhale, one vertebra at a time, top of the spine, mid-spine, lower back. Good. Release the sides of the mat, so hands by your side. And then just a few easy breaths here. Again, when we're kind of just letting our body do its own thing in this basic shape, there is this natural curve in our spine. There's all these beautiful curves in our spine. And for the most part, we want those to happen. We'll alter the shapes a little bit when we're doing our yoga practice. Right, inhale, feel that curve in the lumbar. Exhale, start to flatten, and you do that by directing your tailbone forward. This already starts to engage the legs as you inhale, press into your feet, lift your hips up. So same thing, grab the outer edges of your mat, or perhaps you have the flexibility in your shoulders to interlace fingers. Shimmy those shoulders underneath you, drag your knuckles towards your heels, press into your feet. Keep directing tailbone forward. Feel the expansion across your heart and chest. This is a beautiful pose to feel the breath. Get curious about that. Good. One more deep inhale. Maybe lift a micromillimeter more. Maybe lift just like a thought more. That counts. And then release your hands as you exhale. Slowly roll down. A few breaths. We're going to do one more back bend. So kind of resist the urge to hug the knees in just yet. Kind of counters the back bend. So we'll do that eventually. So one more here. Inhale, feel that natural curve in your lumbar. Exhale, manually lose that curve. So direct your tailbone forward. The spine starts to flatten. Inhale, press into your feet. Keep that idea. And then this time, let's bend our elbows. So we're finding our robot arms, and you can kind of snuggle under here, press into the tops of your arms, your fingertips point up towards the ceiling. In this particular version, I feel like the back of my neck gets a little bit longer. And I didn't mention it in the other two poses, but in this pose, you always want to be gazing at the ceiling. So I, of course, am looking towards the camera from time to time. You don't need to see what I'm doing. You want to keep your neck nice and long. There's a lot of pressure on the neck here. Good. One more deep inhale. Exhale, slowly lower down. And then go ahead here, give the knees a really gentle squeeze. That was a lot of back bending, long holds, maybe rock from side to side. So we're just gonna counter that a little bit, kind of let the lower back release. We're gonna come into our Gomukhasana legs. So we're gonna take our right thigh, cross it over our left thigh, so the knees are kind of stacking here. Depending upon how you're built, the flexibility in your body, you're gonna either hold your calves, you might be able to get ankles. I have really long arms, so I can grab the outer edges of my feet. The knees continue to stack, but then using the strength of your arms, pull in. And this is such a nice little hip stretch. It's a nice little release for that lower back after that bridge pose. We, from time to time, do this pose seated. It's a little more challenging. So if that's you, you might find that you can access it more here, the slaying down version. Good. One more deep inhale. Good. Exhale, release. And then we take that left thigh over right. So knees are essentially stacking on top of each other. And then just again, kind of grab where you can and then pull in using the strength of your arms. So flexing your feet here is really nice as well. So you might have shins, you might have ankles, you might be able to grab the outer edges of your feet. It almost is like you're making handlebars with your legs. Really key into that sound of your breath again. Good. One more deep inhale. And then exhale, unwind here. Give the knees a squeeze in. And then let's just find a nice little supine twist before we come into our final resting pose, Shavasana. So today, let's go ahead and release our feet down. Take your feet as wide as your mat. Good. Bring your arms out in a T shape. We're going to have the knees fall off to the right here. So you might stay here like this. If you want to take your right ankle, cross it above that left knee. That's going to give you a little more stretch potentially, especially if you're more flexible. This is going to intensify things for you. Both are good places to be. You're gazing straight up at the ceiling, or maybe you roll onto that left cheek, gaze out over those fingertips. Wherever you're at, whatever variation, you do want to have both shoulder blades really heavy in the mat underneath you here. Good. So if you're gazing out of your left fingertips, just bring your gaze back up to center. Uncross that right ankle if you took that variation. Inhale, knees up to center. So feet, again, they're nice and wide. And then you just allow them to fall off to the left. So this is a great little twist. It might be plenty, kind of feeling it down in this lower right hip, glute, hip flexor. If you want to take left ankle above right knee, just apply a little pressure. That might intensify things a little bit for you. You're gazing out over right fingertips or straight up at the ceiling. Actually, your eyes are probably closed, kind of moving into that Shavasana state of mind. And slowing the breath down, stretching it out. Good. Inhale, back up to center if you're gazing out over those right fingertips. Uncross left ankle. And then knees come to center. One final squeeze of the knees. Maybe a little rock and roll. And then Shavasana. So setting up however feels best in your body. Maybe it's more of a constructive rest pose. So the feet wide, knees knocking in towards each other. Can extend legs, classic Shavasana. If there's sensation in your lower back, do place something underneath your knees. And just soaking up these final few moments here. Go ahead and take a deeper inhale. Sigh the breath out, let it go. Ha. Wiggle fingers, toes, stretch out. Staying soft and quiet, roll to one side or the other, just finding the fetal position. And then using your hands to help you press up to a comfortable seat. Ending class as we started in Sukhasana. How does this posture feel different now, though? Hopefully it feels like you're sitting a little taller. There's a little more space. There's room for the breath to move. Notice how your head space has shifted. So send yourself love and gratitude for showing up and working hard, and just promise yourself that you're going to carry this good feeling you've created with you into the rest of the day, the rest of the week ahead. Bring your palms together at your heart. Just bow your head with a smile. Beautiful work today. Thank you.